mean, it may sound a bit of a silly question, but for those who've not actually experienced it firsthand, can you just give us a little idea of what it feels like to be the victim of that kind of pursuit?
You know, I would often find myself, I was 21, at midnight running down a dark street on my own with 10 big men chasing me. And the fact that they had cameras in their hand meant that that was legal. But if you take away the cameras, what have you got? You've got a pack of men chasing a woman, and obviously that's a very intimidating situation to be in.
In the final year of the 20th century, unless you're one of those people who counts the final year of a century or decade as the one that ends in 0, in which case, yeah, you're technically right, but go fuck yourself, a barely profitable publication founded in the 1970s made a decision that would skyrocket its own popularity while inadvertently catalyzing unimaginable changes within the entertainment media landscape, when the magazine, then named Us, switched to a week-based release schedule, becoming Us Weekly. This change in the magazine's distribution coincided with a change in its content as well. While it previously focused on broad entertainment industry news, Us Weekly became celebrity central in response to the increased profitability of publications like People magazine and Entertainment Weekly. In the first few years following the magazine's initial makeover, it continued to struggle, but in early 2002, the New York Times reported that Us Weekly had found a new editor-in-chief in Bonnie Fuller, the former editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan and Glamour magazine. Under Fuller, Us Weekly would be radically transformed to combine the often trashy celebrity fixation of tabloids with women's magazine staples such as the coverage of beauty and fashion, introducing widely imitated columns like Who Wore It Best and Fashion Police.
What is she wearing?
Wild one.
Horrible. Horrible.
Despite her only working as its editor-in-chief for a little over a year, Fuller's impact on entertainment journalism through her time at Us Weekly is immeasurable. The magazine's content and aesthetic became the template for other emerging celebrity gossip publications of the 2000s, like In Touch Weekly, launched in 2002, Life and Style Weekly, launched in 2004, and OK Magazine, a publication launched in the UK in 1997, but brought to the US in 2005. Us Weekly's most important and influential feature, introduced by Fuller herself, ran for the first time on April 1st, 2002, a column called Just Like Us. With celebrity culture being a primarily feminine sphere, it's hard to overemphasize how much Bonnie Fuller's intimate knowledge of what a female audience generally wanted to see was crucial to the success of Us Weekly.
And some people may feel that celebrity news or gossip is superficial, and why are women spending so much time with it? But it really isn't, because it is a way for women to reflect on the things that they are concerned about in their own personal lives, and to use celebrities as role models.
We often talk about the concept of famous for being famous as if it's a specific category of celebrity. People like Paris Hilton, Julia Fox, or any Kardashian-Jenner sister. People who don't have a quote-unquote talent like singing or writing or acting. But the phrase actually comes from a book written by Daniel Joseph Boorstin in 1961 called The Image, A Guide to Pseudo-Events in America, where Boorstin defines the concept of celebrity as a whole as a person who is known for his well-knownness. Because though you may be able to relate someone's initial fame with some specific talent or trade, their overall celebrity status is a lot more meta. The amount of people who know who Brad Pitt is not necessarily equal to the amount of people who've seen a movie that Brad Pitt is in. And many of those aware of his mere existence also know things about his personal life that aren't at all related to the textual content of his work as an actor. Strangers know about his romantic relationships. They speculate on his relationship with his children because that's what celebrity is. Brad Pitt, by the very nature of being a celebrity, is famous for being famous. And because celebrity news is built around the personal lives and private identities of public figures, as a genre of entertainment, it is a generally female-centric interest. Men have historically existed within what Jürgen Habermas named the public sphere. The public sphere encapsulates everything that deals with the general society and social life outside a person's private domicile. Think politics, literature, or commercial enterprises. By contrast, the private sphere defines the social world within private homes or small communities. When one goes onto TV to engage in a political debate with one or more individuals, they're existing within the public sphere. When one sits at their kitchen table and gossips with their friends or neighbors, they're participating in their own private sphere. It's easy to see how these two arenas of social life have been historically gendered, with previous generations of most modern cultures expecting men to pursue careers outside the home, while women have been expected to remain housebound, leaving the plot points of their lives to dominantly center emotional conflicts, interpersonal relationships, and the routine maintenance of themselves and their immediate surroundings. Once women began existing prominently within the entertainment industry, it's no surprise that their mere status as public figures often stoked interest in their private lives. Once Hollywood began to rely on a star system to cast big-budget films, the entire industry was enabled to become constructed around an increased demand to make private individuals surrender intimate details of their lives for public spectacle. With this emphasis on making the private public, female celebrities to this day often become the fixation points of celebrity news, the audience for which is also mostly female. Even Brad Pitt's celebrity is influenced by this, since in the era that gossip surrounding his personal life was most plentiful, Brad was at the center of an apparent love triangle, during which the coverage of the drama primarily focused on the supposed feud between two famous women.
Every time I'm checking out, in a 7-Eleven or something, I see the tabloids. I think 80% of the time now they're writing about you. Is that get to be like a pain in the neck at a certain point, or do you have a sense of humor about it?
No. Well, at first, I had no sense of humor about it. Nothing was funny at all. But now you have to. I mean, there's no way around it.
I don't know. I envy you in a way, because I've only had 2 tabloid stories written about me. One was he has high cholesterol, and then the other one was he doesn't wash his hands after he uses the bathroom.
Bonnie Fuller understood the appeal of celebrity news, a domain where journalism and entertainment combine with the promise to make even the most mundane aspects of a public figure's private life into a narrative worth consuming. I think about the fact that Kim Kardashian sleeps in socks and keeps her thermostat at 80 degrees more than you will ever imagine. Former Us Weekly reporter Kate Lee wrote of the creation of Just Like Us, saying, "At the daily late morning editorial meeting, the photo editor brought in images, many taken by paparazzi, that had come in over the wires overnight. He spread the color printouts of celebrities all over the table, movie premieres, vacations, nights on the town. Bonnie sifted through them and focused on a photo of Drew Barrymore leaning over to fetch a coin off the sidewalk. 'Look at Drew Barrymore picking up a penny,' she said. 'It's like stars, they're just like us.' At that moment, the direction of the magazine, and arguably the nature of all celebrity coverage, shifted on its axis. Bonnie came up with a brilliant formula that heralded the era of accessible celebrities. Stars who weren't distant icons, but relatable friends. They might be richer and more beautiful than us, but in unguarded moments, celebrities face the same mundane problems. If that seems obvious now, trust me, it wasn't then." While that photo of Drew Barrymore never actually made it to Us Weekly's pages, the popularity of the magazine's new Just Like Us feature quickly affected the profitability of photographing celebrities. Previously, paparazzi were known to stalk specific spots they knew to hold juicy celebrity content, trying to capture affairs or emerging baby bumps in search of a newsworthy story. Candid shots of the rich and famous just going about their daily lives was usually seen as unusable outtakes. But once Us Weekly discovered that readers were just as eager to see Nikki Hilton pumping her gas, or assess a celebrity's day-to-day fashion sense, as they were to receive, actual celebrity news, photographers were incentivized to step up their sleuthing and gather as many shots of Hollywood's elite as humanly possible. But an increase in the sheer quantity of photographers wandering the streets of Hollywood wasn't a benefit to print media exclusively, or maybe even primarily. On June 1st, 1980, the Turner Broadcasting System introduced its new network, becoming the first TV channel dedicated to providing 24-hour news. The cable news network, aka CNN, was reasonably successful upon launch, but while there certainly were events the network could build its name covering, there were some obvious challenges involved in covering news stories at all hours of the day. The primary obstacle being a lack of newsworthy events. CNN and other news programs would strike gold in 1994 with their near-constant coverage of an event that would blend entertainment media with the disturbing drama of a criminal trial, after famed football star and TV personality O.J. Simpson was arrested and charged with the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown, and her friend Ronald Goldman. Much of the impact of that event could not have possibly been predicted in the mid-90s, but some of the trial's influence could be recognized immediately. 24-hour televised news coverage would no longer be considered a niche market for which only one outlet could find success. The potential entertainment value of incorporating celebrity narratives, true crime, and real-time talking head commentary made the 24-hour news cycle seem extremely profitable. In 1996, NBC Universal officially moved to compete with CNN's continuous news coverage with the launch of their own network, MSNBC. Just a few months after that, the Fox News Corporation jumped into the ring with the Fox News Channel, while multiple celebrity news-based programs began to establish their TV presence throughout the 90s, shows like Inside Edition, Extra, Access Hollywood, or Entertainment Tonight. With the increase in never-ending news coverage, none of the competing networks and programs could be reasonably expected to focus solely on hard-hitting, fact-based news. Political commenters acted as engaging substitutes for actual reporters, and celebrity gossip, even for scandals nowhere near as serious as that of a murder trial, gave talking heads a whole lot of material for sensationalist discourse.
Then there was the incident. Hugh Grant was arrested for lewd conduct with a prostitute named Divine in his car parked on Hollywood Sunset Boulevard. The episode changed life totally for Grant and Hurley. They were the pictures of you arguing in the garden, looking very angry. And some people wondered, why on earth did you do it in a garden when you knew they were photographers? Or was that on purpose? Was that to show that you were angry?
No, at that stage, the only thing I was angry was the fact that I had 350 paparazzi people with long lenses trained into every single room in my house. You know, it's the hottest day of the year. They even had cameras aimed into the bathroom. So curtains had to be drawn. You know, we don't have such things as air conditioning in England. I wanted to get outside. We weren't arguing at all. I was just thinking, Jesus Christ, I can't even walk to my greenhouse to water my tomato plants without some jerk at the end of the garden with a camera on me.
The need to comment on any gossip-worthy development in a public figure's life would come to thrive even more with the advent of some rapidly developing technology that would come to affect our entire society in ways we're still struggling to understand. So, let's talk about the internet. By the early 2000s, celebrity gossip blogs, often created by amateurs with the help of hosting sites like Blogger, WordPress, or LiveJournal, were suddenly competing with print tabloids and televised entertainment news for the attention of the celebrity-obsessed. Countless sites run by everyday people developed cult-like followings. Sites like Lainey Gossip, Pink is the New Blog, What Would Tyler Durden Do, Crazy Days and Nights, etc., etc., etc. And the bloggers had some key advantages over other media formats. For one thing, print media, even publications released on a weekly or daily basis, can't compete with the immediacy of online news, since blogs can be updated in real time. The journalistic freedom offered by the internet also allows bloggers to publish things more traditional forms of media wouldn't or couldn't, empowering the overall tone of the websites to get a little nastier than your typical respected publication. Perhaps the era's most infamous gossip blogger, Perez Hilton of PerezHilton.com, was known for his penchant for the obscene. As a way to avoid paying to license photos without always getting busted for copyright infringement under fair use doctrine, and he still got sued, a lot, his site was covered in digitally vandalized pictures of celebrities edited by Perez in MS Paint, where he often drew penises approaching celebrities' faces and sometimes cum dripping out of their mouths. Perez and many of his peers didn't shy away from posting the things other outlets wouldn't dare publish, especially because some of those things weren't legal to publish. Like when Perez was accused of illegally obtaining and sharing unfinished demos owned by Sony, or when he posted allegedly stolen photos of Jennifer Aniston topless on the set of a film, or when he tweeted a link to a page allegedly displaying upskirt panty-less photos of Miley Cyrus, who was, at the time, 17 years old. No matter how depraved the contents of some gossip blogs were, there was an audience for it. An audience that had become very interactive with the content they consumed, taking to comment sections to participate in the communal slut-shaming of various celebrities, or even sending Perez their own versions of his signature art style, which he would frequently publish to his site. The gossip blogs had created their own cottage industry that confirmed an overwhelming demand for online celebrity content, along with the public's desire to weigh in on any and every celebrity scandal. With the recent merger of what was, at the time, the country's largest internet service provider, AOL, and one of the world's largest media conglomerates, Time Warner, now Warner Media, one company was ready to cash in on this new market. Sometime around mid-2005, a team made up of 7 staff members began work on their own gossip-driven celebrity news website, taking their name from the studio zone of Hollywood, which emphasized the boundaries for union rates within the industry, the 30-mile zone, abbreviated TMZ.
I don't like you because you guys put me in worst bathing suits of the week.
It wasn't the bathing suit we were pointing out.
Unlike the bloggers who'd been dominating the online gossip sphere to that point, TMZ's founder, Harvey Levin, was new to the internet, but definitely not new to celebrity news journalism. He spent a good portion of his adulthood working as an attorney within the entertainment industry and doubled as a reporter for KCBS TV Channel 2, where he reported on, that trial.
I think the purpose is that O.J. Simpson is trying to find a way to make a living. He can't do it in the United States. He's tried, he's failed, and he's looking for a venue. And I think England is his test market for Europe.
For Levin, watching O.J. Simpson literally get away with murder, allegedly, was an enlightening lesson in the power of celebrity and how it interacts with the law, something Levin was hell-bent on exposing along with the other dirty secrets hidden in celebrities' closets. Days before the website launched, TMZ got a hold of footage from a car crash involving Paris Hilton and some random D-listers she was hanging out with. When the site debuted later that month, TMZ's reporting on the incident contained some of the staples the online tabloid is still known for today. Specifically, footage other publications either didn't have or didn't run, and celebrities making shameful, sometimes illegal decisions. Us Weekly had already started to undermine the toothlessness of entertainment news when they moved the print tabloid industry away from the publicist-approved reporting of magazines like People or Entertainment Weekly, and TMZ was gonna break those conventions further. Not only by publishing the candid moments stars weren't expecting the public to see, but by actively seeking out the dirtier moments that could risk a star's career.
I'm now being arrested and handcuffed?
Yep.
Do you know my name, sir?
Don't need to know.
You don't need to know my name?
Not quite yet. I'll get that
really?
information.
Okay. You're about to find out who I am.
I said crazy things, and if you only hear me laughing because I have no idea what I was talking about.
And or thoroughly invade their privacy with no regard for respectful boundaries.
TMZ were the ones that first published the story of the crash that happened at 12:47 p.m. Eastern Time that killed Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others. They published their story at 2:24 p.m. Eastern Time, and of course, it immediately sent shockwaves around the world. Now, Shaq said yesterday that's actually how we first heard about the news. His son showed him the headline on his phone.
And it'd be extremely disrespectful to understand that your loved one was perished and you learn about it from TMZ.
Like all gossip media, the subjects of TMZ's juiciest clips, photos, and headlines are typically women. On November 8, 2006, the website celebrated its 1-year anniversary by highlighting some of its biggest stories to date in an article titled Sex, Drugs, and Firecrotch, 1 Year of TMZ, where the stories centering women make up double the amount of those centering men. Those highlights include Steve-O sniffing about a gram of marijuana in front of a police car, Woody Harrelson breaking a paparazzo's camera before grabbing him by the neck, Tara Reid being denied entry into Club Hyde, and a Vivienne Westwood runway model falling down. Do you notice how the stories involving men contain actual crimes, whereas women are making headlines just for experiencing something unfortunate? Transforming the everyday decisions of Hollywood starlets' lives into headlines meant to provoke shock and schadenfreude was always the bedrock of trashy tabloid culture. But for publications like Us Weekly, Star Magazine, or In Touch, any misogyny present in their celebrity coverage was misogyny targeted toward a dominantly female readership. It was gossipy and judgmental, echoing the ways many women learn to self-police their own behavior in a patriarchal society, determining who's wearing too little or partying too much. When more serious subject matters arise, though, women-targeted tabloids often do extend empathy toward women in the spotlight, which makes sense with the readership. In 1991, during the Anita Hill hearings, People magazine made the matter its cover story and interviewed 6 ordinary women on their experiences with sexual harassment. Following the murder of Nicole Brown, the outlet with the most aggressive, accurate, and timely reporting on the matter, specifically emphasizing the domestic violence angle of the case, was the National Enquirer, which at the time had a readership of 67% women and had already run a full-page story a year earlier on O.J. Simpson's conviction for spousal abuse, becoming one of the few outlets to cover that story as it happened. TMZ, on the other hand, has become infamous for running defense for famous men accused of abuse. Because unlike most celebrity news outlets, TMZ's demographics skew male, affecting not just the site's coverage of gender-based conflicts, but their overall ethos and branding. While the competition decorated their output with pinks and pastels, TMZ colored its digital pages in black, white, and an obnoxiously vivid red. Their headlines are also littered with exclamation points and purposefully inflammatory language. The site's coverage of celebrity gossip is loud, garish, and decidedly anti-woman.
I actually have 3 things that are in some ways indicative of some of these things, and may I read them, because this is what's on our website, and I'm just wondering how you react. Paris is just an oversized human condom. Paris is like a fart in a mitten. You know it's there, you can't stand it, but you can't get rid of it. Would you please drop over dead or commit suicide, you damn slut?
And despite women being the primary demographic for celebrity news, since its premiere in the mid-2000s, TMZ's Boys Club has dominated the celebrity news cycle. The website has broken more stories throughout the years than most of its contemporaries can keep up with, due in part to the fact that they outright pay for tips. The typical sources for a TMZ story range from random employees at restaurants, stores, and salons, to potentially dozens of court employees, to celebrities' own family members, friends, and management. Those working in transportation around LA especially are often groomed into becoming regular sources for the site. TMZ reporters get lists of celebrity clients, their planned routes, and their license plate numbers from limousine services, or the itineraries of celebrity passengers on airlines, meaning TMZ's cameramen always know how to find a public figure at their destination. Now notice I said cameramen, not photographers. The paparazzi industry as a whole mostly relies on freelance cameramen. Occasionally camera women, though that is pretty rare, who either sell their celebrity shots directly to gossip mags, websites, and TV programs, or more often to a handful of photo agencies who specialize in generating candid shots of Hollywood's elite. Agencies like Splash News or Backgrid. By the way, total side note, but it seems like a few years ago, more people became aware of the fact that celebrities do sometimes call paparazzi on themselves, and when they do that, the photos are often licensed by Backgrid, leading a lot of people to start assuming that any time you see Backgrid credited with a photo, that means that the photo was staged. And that is not true, like, at all. First of all, Backgrid is a conglomerate of multiple photo agencies that merged years ago, so it's currently one of, if not the biggest paparazzi agency in Hollywood. So just based off of size alone, of course there's gonna be some staged photographs in there. But most of its photographs don't appear to come from salaried employees, rather just people who have submitted photos to Backgrid. The contributors to their archive could be anyone with footage of a famous person. You can even sign up to be a contributor on their website. Backgrid itself is not overseeing the process for how the photos are taken. They're just buying them. So absolutely, Backgrid is publishing photos that the subjects of those photos didn't consent to having taken. I just had to say that because I keep seeing people on social media trying to use a Backgrid credit as like a gotcha, and it's just so fucking annoying. There is no one photo agency that exclusively does staged paparazzi pictures. That would be such an unsustainable business model. Anyway, by the mid-2000s, with the increased popularity of celebrity-based tabloids, celebrity gossip blogs, and celebrity news TV, a few photo agencies began building their own teams of paparazzi. For a while, X17 was the biggest in Hollywood, with The Atlantic reporting in 2008 that the agency employed about 60 to 70 cameramen who were paid a weekly stipend of about $800 to $3,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1,100 to $4,200 per week, along with the occasional bonus in the 4 to low 5-figure range for global licensing rights. Like TMZ, X17 reportedly pays for tips, getting info from parking lot attendants, club kids, and retail employees in and around the LA area. And the internet's insatiable need for more celebrity content at all hours of the day allowed for the sale of mostly indiscriminate footage. Not every photo had to be particularly juicy, especially since websites don't have to be selective in what they publicize, making it easier for agencies like X17 to sell sets of footage rather than individual photos. There was still pressure on paparazzi to get the picture, but ultimately any picture would do. And the increasing popularity of non-print media meant that videos could be just as, if not more profitable than still photos. Thus, X17 started sending out videographers, a tactic that TMZ would first profit from in their purchasing of X17 footage. That TMZ published video of Paris Hilton crashing her car, for example, was in fact licensed from X17, and then later mimic with their own crew of dedicated cameramen. TMZ and X17's move to send their cameramen out armed with video cameras permanently altered the tone of celebrity news coverage. It wasn't publicist-driven, as it had been in the era where Entertainment Weekly and People magazine were the tabloid standard, nor was it spectator-driven, as it had been under Bonnie Fuller's influence. TMZ's reporting was aggressive and confrontational, with videographers intentionally invading celebrities' personal spaces, turning public sidewalks into venues for impromptu interviews.
All right, so I'm trying to get celebrity reactions to what's going on with the Palestinians and Israelis right now.
You don't want to know what she said. Technical advances gave the average citizen affordable access to digital cameras, including through their phones. In 2005, Splash News launched its website peoplepaparazzi.com, where random people could send in their celebrity snaps with the promise of 60% profit should Splash sell it to an outlet. Paparazzi were in competition with theoretically everyone, but if you manage to achieve decent success in the business, the pay could be lucrative. In June of 2005, New York City-based paparazzo Mitch Gerber told Forbes that the average paparazzo makes $60,000 to $100,000 a year, with the top guys making around $250,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's a range of about $94,000 to just under $400,000 annually. Photographer John Barrett claimed to make $30,000 just off of one photo of Brooke Shields and her then partner, Andre Agassi, holding hands on a walk in New York, which is a lot of money for a photo I've never in my life seen. I even tried to find it for this video. I can't. But getting the shot worth tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, is a lot of pressure when you're one of 20 paps tailing a celebrity. Most of the paparazzi industry is made up of working class men. And while they theoretically could make a fuck ton of money off of a few photos or photo sets, most of them aren't making a lot of money at all, even if their footage sells to publications for a lot. Since a majority are doing business through these various photo agencies, they're not gonna get a majority of the profit. On average, the actual photographers are only taking home about 30 to 40% of that sale. So there's potential to make a good living off of selling candid Hollywood photos, but most of the men taking those photos are living paycheck to paycheck, just hoping to score the kind of payout that could take care of their expenses for a few months. For many of them, that kind of success is incredibly unlikely, but so is their potential for success in alternative employment options. Prior to 2002, in the start of the Just Like Us era of tabloids, the paparazzi industry was made up mostly of white working class men. But from 2002 to 2008, when the industry reached an all-time high in demand for paparazzi footage, paparazzi demographics became predominantly Latino, with many of the cameramen being undocumented immigrants. Due to their undocumented status, those men can't sign contracts with photo agencies directly. Instead, what a lot of them do is sell their photos to other photographers for a flat fee. Those other photographers then take the photos to the agency and possibly keep a majority of the profit for photos they never actually took. I want to say all that because paparazzi have a lot of hate directed at them because of their often invasive and sometimes dangerous work. But it should really be emphasized here that in the grand scheme of things, the men you see taking those photos don't really have a whole lot of social, economic, or political power. When you see these videos of crowds of men chasing after a famous person's car or crowding a celebrity on the street with their cameras, those are not all evil, unempathetic men. For the most part, those are just desperate men whose economic prospects are incredibly limited. Unfortunately, desperation is often a catalyst for precarious and/or hostile environments. As the paparazzi crowd in LA specifically started to get more chaotic in the mid-2000s, the environments themselves just started to get more intense. And that intensity seemed to stoke a whole lot more dedication from the photographers themselves. Over the years following various car accidents, lawsuits, and the occasional death, different laws have been put in place curbing the legal rights of paparazzi, mostly in California. But those laws are pretty ineffective since they only ever really target the men taking the photos and never really the outlets buying and publishing them. Sure, you can make it illegal for a cameraman to pursue their subject via motor vehicle, but if every tabloid, blog, and website is still able to publish the footage, of course there's going to be someone willing to take it. And as much as most morally righteous people like to act like we all hate paparazzi culture and think it's so invasive and gross, if we really all despised the practice as much as we say we do, the easier solution would be to put sanctions on what outlets could publish. But that would mean limiting the amount of footage we the public got to look at, and there's a reason that this industry has been so profitable. Since the development of Hollywood's star system, celebrity culture has remained inextricably tied to a sort of fetishistic voyeurism and parasocial bonding. As more news formats have caught on to the profitability of the genre and technology advancements have made it easier to pry deep into the lives of public figures, celebrity gossip has gotten increasingly more detailed and intrusive, which the public continues to respond to with rabid consumption. The burgeoning influence of TMZ and blog sites like Perez Hilton fostered an environment during the 2000s in which tabloid and celebrity gossip culture became unbearably antagonistic and cruel, where the point of reporting on celebrity news wasn't to inform the public of Hollywood goings-ons from a distance, but to catalyze large cultural conversations for how we can collectively judge and mock individual famous people, and again, typically individual famous women. Because while Mel Gibson was making headlines for a DUI and anti-Semitic tirades in 2006, Hollywood's biggest starlets were becoming tabloid fodder for, well, also DUIs on occasion, but mostly just existing publicly in ways that made middle America uncomfortable.
Look what they did. They took you off the cover. They cut you out of it.
It's a little hurtful.
You got replaced by Jessica Simpson.
Yeah, who was in a weight battle, apparently.
These pictures, that outfit, this woman, Jessica Simpson, people can't stop talking about it, saying she looks fat.
I'm going to say something terrible and hideous here. Are you ready? She doesn't look that good.
No, she doesn't look good, but she put on some weight, which is a start.
Yeah, except she looks kind of chubby.
Kirstie Alley, remember Kirstie Alley? This woman was a tremendous, she is still a fine actor, and then she had some problems, and she started eating, and she had some donuts, and she would have some cookies.
Hillary said her commitment to shrink down began when she read a not-so-nice tabloid headline in late 2004.
When Hillary was just 17 years old, she was shocked by a headline that said, Hillary Duff puffs up.
As for Nicole Richie, it didn't go unnoticed when she first appeared on The Simple Life that she was a bit pudgier than her co-star Paris Hilton. The latest edition of Us magazine asks on its cover, is she too thin?
If you watched the season premiere of Saturday Night Live, two things were instantly obvious. The show is not funny and Megan Fox is not as hot when she opens her mouth.
Tonight, we've got the most useless celebrities in Hollywood. We want to know, of all of the stars out there, who exactly is the biggest waste of space?
Where are the men on this list? Not a one. Sorry, what did you say?
Paris's mom, Kathy, says, I have a funny feeling it's going to go all the way. So does everyone who dates your daughter.
Wow, that's really her. Paris, over here. I don't get it. What does she do? She's super rich. But what does she do? She's totally spoiled and snobby. What does she do?
She's a whore.
She's so talentless, she decided to videotape her sex session with Ray J, an independent hip-hop artist. Not even enough talent to fuck a guy on a major label.
I am so sorry, but this is why I am so concerned about the future of young women in society, because this chick gets a TV show.
Yeah, with all of the hoopla about it being Ray J and people trying to blame him, did you see him on the cover of Playgirl?
Scandalous pictures of Vanessa Hudgens, the star of that kids' movie High School Musical, which was overwhelmingly popular in the Disney Channel, just came out about 2 weeks ago.
Where's Vanessa Hudgens? Girl, you got to keep your clothes on! Phones are for phone calls, girl!
Now to another child star that we've been hearing a lot about today, 15-year-old pop sensation Miley Cyrus, taking a whole lot of heat for this racy photo in a spread in the new issue of Vanity Fair.
Look, she's 15. She should have known better. She should have thought of that, about that.
before she took her clothes off.
Another key thing to remember is that what nudity, the subliminal message of nudity is that what you see is what you get. And this is a really confusing message to boys and men. It's no coincidence that in the U.S. today, more than 1 out of every 3 girls will be sexually abused before the age of 20.
Practically every female public figure of the 2000s had to deal with this shit in one form or another, and some were more regularly victimized than others. But while it would be hard to quantify all of the bullshit and establish some definitive ranking of who received the most unjustified backlash, really only slots 2 through like 1,000 are up for debate. 'Cause in terms of experiencing the most absurd criticisms, the most sadistic news coverage, or the most men shoving cameras into her face or up her skirt just for walking down the street, there's only one woman who we can really say is the face of peak paparazzi culture and all its viciousness.
It's Britney, bitch.
It's impossible to fully untangle the Britney Spears story from that of 2000 celebrity media. In an article published for Portfolio in January 2008 titled The Britney Economy, Duff McDonald claimed that celebrity tabloids with Britney's face on the cover sold 33% more on average, writing, "Between January 2006 and July 2007, Britney was a cover subject of People, Us Weekly, In Touch, Life and Style, OK, or Star a total of 175 times in just 78 weeks. She's also topped the annual Yahoo search rankings in 6 of the past 7 years, slipping to number 2 only in 2004 when Paris Hilton briefly stole her crown." Yahoo was a bigger deal back then. For Paparazzi, the collective cultural interest in Britney was unbelievably profitable. In April of 2008, David Samuels wrote for The Atlantic that photos and videos from an incident involving Britney, an umbrella, and a Ford Explorer sold to publications for nearly $400,000 in 2007. When she shaved her head, Entertainment Tonight reportedly bought the photos for $80,000 just to air for one night. McDonald estimated that footage of Britney made up 20% of the overall paparazzi business during that time, while Samuels estimated that she made up 30% of X-17's business specifically. Samuels claimed that Britney was shot by about 30 to 45 men on an average night, with many of the most iconic photos from that time coming from photographers contracted with X-17. At its peak, the agency assigned a team of 7 to 8 Brazilian photographers known in the industry as MBF, or just the Brazilians, along with their Mexican videographer Daniel Ramos, to trail Britney exclusively. And a pair of brothers from Argentina was tasked by X-17 to follow Kevin Federline, Britney's recently divorced ex-husband. Samuels writes, "The Brazilians have logged over 40,000 man-hours watching Britney while taking perhaps $6 million worth of often exclusive pictures. When Britney fulfills her apparent fate and dies in a fiery car crash or overdoses on prescription medication, it will be surpassingly strange if MBF misses the shot." The morbidity of Samuel's prognosis is notable, but not really unusual for the time. In 2007, Harvey Levin told the New York Times, "Britney is old faithful. There are people who love her and there are people who think she's a train wreck, and everybody wonders how it's going to end." In January of 2008, Jesse Washington, an entertainment editor for the Associated Press, told Us Weekly that the AP had started preparing Britney's obituary a month earlier. Washington is quoted saying, "We are not wishing it, but if Britney passed away, it's easily one of the biggest stories in a long time." Days before that, the AP's Los Angeles bureau sent out an internal memo to its staff stating, "Now and for the foreseeable future, virtually everything involving Britney is a big deal." By that point, OK's US magazine had a 10-person team devoted to covering stories about Britney. Between January 2006 and January 2008, her face was on the cover of more than half of OK's 103 issues. For Us Weekly, she found her way onto nearly 2 out of 3 of its 2007 covers, including every single one of its final 14 issues of the year. Even calls to reduce the amount of scrutiny Britney was under inadvertently expanded the cultural discourse surrounding her name. When Cara Cunningham posted a video onto YouTube in September of 2007 begging the public to leave Britney alone, the video garnered 10.8 million views in less than a month, becoming one of the most viewed uploads in YouTube history at the time.
All you people care about is readers and making money off of her. She's a human!
Cunningham went on to do talk show appearances discussing the viral video, sometimes in Britney's defense.
America, I want you to know that before I'm an American, I'm a Britney fan.
But sometimes not.
And I'm actually not a fan anymore. I'll say that here today on your show.
Wow.
She didn't even send me a fruit basket privately. No thank you, nothing. She should have sent me a fruit basket, Rachel.
When Britney was taken to a hospital via ambulance twice at the beginning of 2008, the trip cost taxpayers about $25,000 for a motorcycle, helicopter, and patrol car escort due to the onslaught of paparazzi following the vehicle. It's hard to say that taxpayers really suffered for it, considering the amount of Americans consuming that story. Though the exact numbers aren't clear, an executive producer for Inside Edition credited the incident with a major ratings spike. X17 claimed that traffic to their website doubled every hour the night of the ambulance ride. Months later, it was reported that the UCLA Medical Center where Britney was hospitalized had to fire 13 employees and suspend 6 physicians for looking at her medical records without valid reason. Britney's privacy was regularly and thoroughly violated. When Britney's attorneys requested a gag order be placed over her divorce and custody dispute proceedings, arguing that the media coverage was becoming emotionally and physically dangerous to her, and asking that attorneys on the case be barred from discussing court proceedings with media outlets, her request was denied. The rest of the country turned mocking Britney Spears into a national pastime that became so ubiquitous, the participants didn't even bother to hide the joy they found in collectively bullying this one woman.
So not a day goes by that she's not on your website.
She is like the all-you-can-eat buffet.
It's
she
like,
just gives and gives.
It was like Britney was experiencing punishment by publicity. The question was, punishment for what? The collective turn against Britney Spears wasn't sudden. She emerged into the pop music industry courting controversy. The music video for her first single, filmed and released in 1998 when Britney was just 16 years old, showed the then teen in a Catholic schoolgirl-inspired outfit, emphasizing and sexualizing her youth simultaneously. Concerns about her public image being too provocative for her age intensified with her 1999 Rolling Stone cover when a 17-year-old Britney posed in lingerie in her childhood bedroom and held a stuffed Tinky Winky, the gay Teletubby, in a photo shoot directed by David LaChapelle. That image prompted the American Family Association to call for all God-loving Americans to boycott stores selling Britney's albums. Britney later stated in an interview with GQ in 2003 that LaChapelle totally tricked her into taking the photos, but the narrative of Britney's team has always been that she was the mastermind behind the controversial shoot, and that they were helpless to stop this minor from sexualizing her underage body. Britney got the blame, along with an instant image as a reckless provocateur. Luckily, the AFA's boycott didn't work. In 1999, Britney became the youngest artist ever to have an album go diamond, when her debut sold 10 million copies within a year of release. Her second album, appropriately titled Oops, I Did It Again, went diamond as well, and by the time Britney turned 20, she had become the highest-selling teenage solo artist in history. For a time in the early 2000s, Britney Spears was the archetypal pop star, whom every other young female singer was expected to imitate. And though some were turned off by Britney's subtle displays of sexuality, her claims of celibacy and good Southern Baptist Christian values made her sexual expressions mostly non-threatening to puritanical moral standards. She was sexy enough to lust over, but insisted she wasn't personally seeking sexual gratification. The ideal woman. Whether she meant to or not, Britney Spears became the 2000s most prominent representative for girl culture. Thus, policing what she could or couldn't get away with saying, doing, or wearing meant affirming the values all young girls were expected to abide by.
What happens is you get all these, she's got all these little kids, these like little fans, like my little girl is a fan, you know what I mean? She listens to some of her music, and what happens is these little girls start looking up to her because she is like this cute little teeny bopper, then all of a sudden, what happened, you know?
What I would say to Britney, if I saw her on the street, I'd probably tell her, think about those 12-year-olds that listen to your music, and think about the 12-year-olds who saw you on the VMAs, and think what they're thinking. They probably are thinking that it's okay to dress like that, which it's not.
But what's this about? No kidding. What is it about?
What is it about?
Yeah.
It's about doing a beautiful picture.
Is it about shocking people?
About shocking? Have you seen?
You know,
I hate to bring this up, but Kate Hudson, she's 22, she's in sheets. Jennifer Lopez, she poses very provocatively sometimes. Christina Aguilera, what's the big deal when I do it? Like, come on, you know? I don't understand.
I think everybody always thought you had a different relationship to young girls.
And mocking Britney Spears was essentially shorthand for mocking all teen girls and their stereotyped interests. For years, shock rocker Alice Cooper featured bits in his shows that portrayed Britney as rock and roll's true enemy. He often wore a t-shirt with the words "Britney Wants Me" emblazoned on the front and "Dead" written on the back.
Britney Spears!
Sometimes his daughter would appear on stage dressed as Britney. When she would hand him a Pepsi, a brand with whom the real Britney had a massive endorsement deal, Alice would spit the drink into her face before mock beating her and chasing her off stage with a spear. Get it? A spear? Britney Spears? When he came back into the audience's view, Alice held up a prop representing Britney's decapitated head as his bubblegum pop-hating fans erupted into applause. He told Livewire in 2001, "You know, it's not Britney personally, it's Alice's image and Britney's image. They just collide. My audience can't stand Britney, and I'm sure that her audience isn't real big on me." I hate to break it to you, Alice, but I don't think her audience thinks of you at all. And it's not like it was just old hetero men hating on Britney or using her as a scapegoat for everything they've deemed wrong with the modern pop industry. For a lot of women at the time, proving they were not like other girls meant proving they weren't like Britney specifically. In 1999, Evanescence's Amy Lee wrote the song "Everybody's Fool" about her frustration with the fakeness of bubblegum pop acts who were like really fake, cheesy, slutty female crackerbox idols. When Evanescence released the song and video in 2004, the references to Britney were obvious, though Amy denied it was about her specifically. She told Jim Abbott, "At this point, everybody knows that Britney is fake. The song is not about Britney Spears, it's about a lot of people in this industry. It's so fake, the whole Hollywood thing. Where are all the normal people?" Now, were there fake things about Britney's public image at the time? Yeah. In several ways, her management restricted her ability to publicly express herself, or even just exist as a human being. In 2002, filmmaker Judy Hoffman directed a documentary following the final days of Britney's Dream Within a Dream tour called Stages, which offered a surprisingly candid portrait of the singer's life at that moment. To get Jive Records to agree to the film, however, Hoffman had to censor aspects of Britney's day-to-day life to preserve a specific image of Britney Spears, the pop star. Hoffman told Vanity Fair almost 20 years later that she couldn't show Britney smoking or drinking, making her remove a pack of cigarettes from Britney's table. Nor could she show Britney using or even walking next to the product of any brand that competed with her sponsorships. Editors had to blur the label of a water bottle in Britney's hand during one scene and blur Britney's entire cell phone throughout the documentary. When the film crew followed Britney through the halls of her hotel, they had to block out any non-Pepsi vending machines, with Hoffman telling Vanity Fair that Britney was owned by the label. But just because Britney was treated like a product by her label doesn't mean she was a product of her label. By portraying her like this pop automatron, all the credit for Britney's accomplishments were swiped from her and given to some unidentified men in suits we've conceptualized as her puppet masters. And that really sucks for Britney. A lot of people don't want to give her the credit that she deserves for her own work, including Amy Lee, who specifically said in a different interview that Britney was just straight up not talented. And that's shitty. What's shittier, though, is the fact that this idea that Britney is some pop puppet gave a lot of people license to dehumanize her while acting like they were speaking truth to power in some way. Just by existing so prominently, female public figures are already fighting old patriarchal ideas about a woman's place being in the private sphere. Behind most hate campaigns against female celebrities, there's a general sense that folks are interrogating the question, who does she think she is being this popular? Success for a woman is only acceptable so long as it appears effortless, but the second words like fake, insincere, or calculating get applied to her hard-earned achievements, the backlash will be swift. Pun absolutely intended. At least for Taylor, during her own wave of backlash, there was an acknowledgement that she was the calculating puppet master pulling the strings for her own publicity. For Britney, her accomplishments were never even seen as her own. She was deemed fake, untalented, and undeserving of her success. Thus, criticizing her could be played off as the morally righteous thing to do. The fact that she'd achieved so much was just unfair if you really thought she was just a passionless puppet of the label, and it's not punching down as long as she's the biggest pop star in the world. Other public figures talked about Britney in blatantly cruel ways, but passed it off like it's not about Britney, it's just about the idea of Britney. But you can't hold up a prop resembling someone's decapitated head and claim that the act is not personal. It's personal by the very nature of the fact that she is a person. But that's not how a lot of people saw Britney at the time, despite all the obvious evidence of her humanity. However reined in Britney was in the first 4-ish years of her career, by 2003, her tightly controlled bubblegum pop persona was rapidly eroding. When she split from her fellow pop star boyfriend Justin Timberlake in early 2002, the fallout from the breakup changed her public image forever. His song Cry Me a River, released later that year, spoke of a former partner who broke poor Justin's heart with her infidelity, and in case there was any doubt over who the song was about, he cast a Britney lookalike in the video. In many ways, Justin set the standard for how other people would talk about Britney Spears for years to come, treating her public humiliation like an act of justice.
Thought our love was so strong, I guess I was dead wrong. But to look at it positively, hey girl, at least you gave me another song about a horrible woman.
During a radio interview in November, JT openly bragged about having sex with Britney despite her public claims of abstinence. That was seen as such a not weird thing for him to do that 7 years later he did it again to overwhelming applause on the set of Saturday Night Live.
I'd like to think that at first he'll date a popular female singer. Publicly they'll claim to be virgins, but privately he hid it.
Because Britney had talked about her supposed virginity before, prodding into her sexual history wasn't seen as an invasion of privacy, it was information the public was entitled to. Proof that Britney Spears was a slutty phony all along. An imposter. And for anyone bothered by the record-breaking success of the first 3 years of her career, they would be delighted by the fact that her third album, the self-titled Britney, sold significantly fewer copies than her first 2 records. Around the same time, Britney opened a restaurant called Nyla, but terminated her relationship with the business a few months later, following some scathing reviews and a few alleged instances of food poisoning. Earlier in the year, her film Crossroads was panned by critics, failed to premiere at #1 at the box office, then faced a 52% drop in ticket sales the following week. Even Brit's core demographic was distancing themselves. In September of 2002, Us Weekly wrote, "According to research by the Zandel Group, a company that observes youth marketing trends, her popularity with her core audience of teen and preteen girls has plummeted 50% in the last 6 months." Finally, the pop princess was falling and being thoroughly vilified in the press. By 2003, every small thing Britney did was treated as a full-blown scandal. When she flipped off a photographer in Mexico, then canceled a show midway through due to weather, a decision you can see her and her team agonizing over in the Stages documentary, the crowd at the concert chanted fraud and threw their Britney merch at the stage. Entertainment Weekly reported the following week that Britney had alienated the entire country of Mexico. At the London premiere for Crossroads, Britney was running late and neglected to sign autographs as she rushed through the doors, so her own fans booed her. Meanwhile, her public image was becoming increasingly provocative. The promotional tour for her 4th album featured bits in which Britney simulated both sex and masturbation on stage, as rumors swirled about her enjoying the company of multiple famous men whom she didn't appear to be in a monogamous relationship with. In a review for Crossroads, critic Stephen Holden wrote for the New York Times, "It's a little eerie how machine-like Miss Spears often appears. Although she is obviously a human being, her looks, singing, dancing, and acting all suggest a computerized composite of some people's ideal of the post-teenage all-American girl. Unlike Madonna or almost any pop diva you could mention, Ms. Spears has no discernible demons hovering in her aura." But the slow reveal of the demons hovering in her aura definitely didn't help Britney regain any favor in the public eye. At the beginning of 2004, Britney shocked the nation with a Las Vegas wedding that was annulled after 55 hours and reportedly really pissed off her team. Photos from the chapel spread across the internet, tabloids, and TV, showing Britney in ripped jeans and a baseball cap while standing next to a random guy, her new husband, albeit briefly, from Brit's hometown of Kentwood, Louisiana. Previously, Britney's Southern heritage was presented as an endearing aspect of her humble girl-next-door image, informing her Christian faith and traditional small-town values. The breakup with Justin Timberlake made it easier to vilify Britney, especially through a focus on her sexuality, but the tabloid fixation on her in terms of paparazzi footage didn't really ramp up until after the Vegas wedding, due in part to the increase of cameramen stalking the streets of LA following the Just Like Us craze of the mid-2000s, but also to the sudden realization that the narrative of Britney's apparent downfall could be suitably told in candid photographs without the need for comments from inside sources. If you want proof that Britney Spears actually wasn't the pure, polished pop star she was once presented as, look no further than all these images of her puffing on cigarettes and eating gas station snack foods in her low-cut denim shorts. Scott Lapatine of Stereo Gum said in July of 2004, "She can't even be bothered to brush her hair or wash her face anymore. This whole phase, and let's hope it's a phase, is a big middle finger to all her fans." While William Van Meter, a senior contributing editor at Spin magazine, said, "It seems like she had a really good PR team, but now the real Britney's emerging, and she's just a total redneck." A sudden knee injury toward the beginning of 2004 put Britney's career into a hiatus, kinda. She had to cancel the rest of her Onyx Hotel tour and scrap a partially filmed music video, but she had already begun shooting footage for an upcoming reality show then called Entourage. That footage would eventually be used for Britney and Kevin Chaotic, a 5-episode-long reality series centered around Britney's relationship with Kevin Federline, which premiered in the spring of 2005. To Chaotic's credit, it might be one of the realest reality shows ever made. It features very little professional footage. Most of it is just recordings from a handheld camcorder operated by Britney, Kevin, or someone else on Britney's team who captured footage so recklessly that some of it is literally sideways.
Well, I could not come in here.
Because I was having sex.
Not in here?
Yes, in here.
No!
Yes.
How many times did you do that?
I'm quick. I'm wham bam. Thank you, Bill.
No, but hello. How many times today? No!
That's why I have this glow.
There's no real plot or point to the show beyond confirming that Britney Spears was clearly very lonely at the time and apparently extremely horny, given the amount she talks about sex or films close-ups of her and Kevin making out. Britney's public image was more human and vulnerable than ever. And considering all the shit she'd gotten in the past for being too manufactured and watered down, the media coverage on her life must have gotten nicer during this time, right? I mean, I'm sure if we look at reviews for Chaotic, people are at least praising her realness, right? Well, here's one from Slant magazine, where Ed Gonzalez opens writing, 2 years ago, Britney Spears was coyly singing the praises of her still intact hymen. Alright, that's a weird way to start, but let's just keep going, I'm sure it gets better. Shot almost entirely from the point of view of Britney's home video camera, Chaotic evokes a vagina devouring everything in its path. Alright? So maybe the reviews for Chaotic are still bad. That's kind of understandable. It's a very loosely formatted show. It's not for everyone. It's not really even for me. But there has to at least be some appreciation for where Britney's career is going at this point and how much more in control she seems than before. I mean, one nice thing is that Alice Cooper at least stopped decapitating her on stage, instead replacing her with Paris Hilton in 2005. But with that replacement, he told an interviewer at the time, "We used to cut Britney Spears' head off, but she's pregnant, so we gave her a year off." So, you know, kinda sounds like he had more respect for Britney as a vessel for a fetus than he did for her as a human being. But okay, maybe motherhood will be the thing that saves Britney from the constant media scrutiny. You know, get people to be a little softer toward her as she navigates this new identity in her life. In September 2005, Britney gave birth to her first son, then a few months later became pregnant with her second. Britney has since claimed that she thinks she was suffering from prenatal depression at the time, writing on Instagram last year, "Women didn't talk about it back then. Some people considered it dangerous if a woman complained like that with a baby inside her." Britney's right that these things weren't spoken about as prevalently back in the mid-2000s, but people certainly did know that they existed. With fluctuating hormones and the overall stress of responsibility that comes with impending parenthood, having 2 kids so close together wouldn't be an easy experience for anyone, physically or mentally, especially a 23 or 24-year-old put under a media microscope. Far from Britney's back-to-back pregnancies garnering her any amount of sympathy, however, assessing all the ways that she was failing as a mother was just another avenue to police Britney's womanhood, giving paparazzi a new reason to follow her every move, just waiting for her to fuck up, which, of course, she occasionally did. In February of 2006, photographers snapped pics of Britney driving down the road with her 4-month-old sitting in her lap rather than strapped into a car seat. TMZ reported that the pictures were prompting the LA County Department of Children and Family Services to investigate the incident, and Britney released a statement saying, "I had a horrifying, frightful encounter with the paparazzi while I was with my baby. I was terrified they would put us in danger. I instinctively took measures to get my baby and me out of harm's way. In April, reports emerged that Britney had been visited again by child welfare officials after her son slipped out of the arms of a nanny who was lifting him from a broken high chair. A month later, photos were published of Britney driving her convertible with her son's car seat facing the wrong direction, according to many child safety advocates. Then a few days after that, a noticeably pregnant Britney stumbled on the street outside her hotel while holding her son in her arms and navigating through a sea of paparazzi. She regained her footing quickly. The worst thing that happened was her kid's little orange hat fell off, but tabloids chose to run the story with the most dramatic retellings possible. A report from the Daily Mail writes, Britney Spears' childcare methods are being questioned once again after she nearly dropped her 8-month-old son on his head. As Britney stumbled, her son's head whipped back in a violent manner. His chubby arms desperately reached for his mother, and his tiny hat was flung to the ground. Significantly, she managed to avoid spilling even a drop of her drink. Fortunately, Britney's quick-thinking bodyguard was on hand, and he caught Sean Preston before his head hit the floor. Is that actually what happened, though? You can slow down the footage and watch. Britney's bodyguard really didn't do shit. By the time he swooped in, Brit had already stopped her and her son from falling. But it works better for the overall narrative of the tabloids to paint Britney as an ineffective mother who would probably have killed herself and her sons at this point if it weren't for all the big, strong, smart men around to save her from her own mistakes. Mistakes, by the way, that any first-time mother could make. High chairs break and sometimes kids fall. It might have been recommended that Britney put her son into a rear-facing car seat, but at the time, only 10 out of 50 states had any laws on the books requiring rear-facing car seats, and California wasn't one of them. In that instance, she was in full compliance with the law. And we can't look into an alternative reality to find out, but there's a real possibility that neither the lap incident or the stumble outside of her hotel would have even happened if not for the swarms of paparazzi surrounding her and affecting her sense of security. But if paparazzi and publications profited from sharing the most unflattering footage of Britney, they could only benefit from her destabilization. The more bothered Britney was by all the attention, the more money that tabloids and photographers and bloggers and TV networks could make off of her downfall. And with her downfall coming at this particular time in history, when paparazzi were all clamoring to provide the most lucrative shots to sell to print tabloids, TV stations, and celebrity news sites, the number of photographers stalking the streets of LA was reaching an all-time high. Cameras and their increasingly aggressive operators became omnipresent in Britney Spears' physical surroundings, and everyone was speculating about her private life, especially her struggles. When reports emerged alleging problems in Britney and K-Fed's relationship, public interest exploded.
Do you get the sense, Britney, that people are rooting against this marriage? And I don't mean just the magazine editors. I mean people.
I don't really know.
People were definitely rooting against the marriage. And really the entire relationship since pretty much day one. For as much scrutiny as Britney was getting at the time, most people still thought K-Fed was beneath her, and rejoiced the day it was announced that she'd filed for divorce.
But it's the biggest news in the country, ladies and gentlemen. Britney Spears is leaving K-Fed!
It was a joyous occasion, but like most of the celebrated events in Britney Spears' life, seemed to come with an expectation that everything was just gonna go back to normal now. Everything Britney went through no longer matters. She will become the exact pop star and public figure who she was before, the version that we were all a little bit more comfortable with her strict media training and perfectly brushed hair. But that's not what happened. Britney later admitted that the divorce from Kevin destabilized her further, prompting her to seek comfort in the LA nightlife as she and Kevin fought over custody of their 2 kids. On November 7th, she filed for divorce, just 2 months after giving birth to their second child. Less than 2 weeks after that, Brit made headlines when she was partying with the controversial reality star Paris Hilton, whom she would continue being seen with at various nightclubs and house parties throughout the rest of the year. The fact that Britney was partying was a story by itself, adding fuel to the idea that if Britney wasn't with her kids 100% of the time, even while she was sharing custody with her ex, she was a certifiable bad mom. The cover story of Star Magazine's December 2006 issue alleged that K-Fed was accusing Britney of being an unfit mother who drank while pregnant and is bisexual. While Star captioned photos of Britney on the streets of Hollywood with the words, "Can't stop partying," the outlet celebrated Kevin's devoted dad makeover. Like, see, in October, he was wearing trucker hats and plain white t-shirts, but in November, he started wearing suits. A judge may look favorably on that, a caption for the photos state. More importantly, Britney was also, again, a bad role model for young women. Paparazzi had developed such an overwhelming presence outside LA nightclubs frequented by the rich and famous that close-up shots of starlets exiting their cars, taken from angles specifically meant to go up the women's skirts, were regularly sold to outlets and plastered across celebrity news sites and blogs. On multiple occasions, Britney and others were caught without underwear, leading ABC News to deem her a panty-less menace. On Britney's website, she addressed some of the concerns regarding her new party girl image, writing in December of 2006, "It's been so long since I've been out on the town with friends. It's also been 2 years since I've even celebrated my birthday. Every move I make at this point has been magnified more than I could have expected, and I probably did take my newfound freedom a bit too far. Anyway, thank God for Victoria's Secret's new underwear line. I look forward to a new year, new music, and a new me." By and large, though, the backlash against Britney's partying had less to do with what she was actually doing, and more to do with whom she was doing it with. Namely, Paris Hilton and occasionally Lindsay Lohan. Paris had garnered her own reputation as a shameless party girl for the era, characterized in the blogs, tabloids, and elsewhere as a spoiled, slutty brat whose celebrity status was unearned due to the publicity the unconsenting leak of a private sex tape brought her.
Paris Hilton has lost her inheritance. Aw, poor Paris. Could it be because Paris got a sex tape and was in jail and goes around without panties on? Maybe it could have something to do with that. But it's terrific. I'm ecstatic over it. Because think about it. What does she do to deserve it?
What does anyone do to deserve anything? We don't live in a meritocracy. That's not how that works. But for some reason, it only seems to really bother people when they can declare that women like Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian got famous off a sex tape. Even though The Simple Life was already airing when Paris's sex tape was leaked, and Keeping Up with the Kardashians was already greenlit and in pre-production when Kim's sex tape was announced. So they really would have been reality stars either way, and clearly that is what they are mostly famous for. The very chastising famous for being famous label that pretty much exclusively gets attached to women is just another way to beg the question, who does she think she is being this popular? What did she do to deserve it? The answer is pretty obvious though. People like Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton are famous because people are interested in their lives, even if just to mock them. In a way, they're kind of the purest form of celebrity, because their fame cuts out all the bullshit of talent and trade and just goes directly into what makes celebrity culture thrive. The parasocial bonding of feeling like you know someone you've never met, and getting to judge them based off of small snippets of their life that you can then blow up and act as if it's representative for larger problems in society. By chastising Paris and Kim for making a sex tape, we can send a message to all young girls that their sexuality is something that can and should be policed. So even though Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan are not considered famous for being famous like your average reality star, They still fit really well into that world due to the 2000s media's obsession with casting them as failed role models, who no longer deserve whatever success they once achieved.
Mark, Pat, Joe, let's fire it up. On our Useless Celebrity Index, we begin with Hollywood's favorite train wreck, Britney Spears. Let's move on now. Next on our Useless Celebrity Index, oh, well, the big surprise here, Paris Hilton made the list. Well, we can't have this conversation without judging Paris, and of course without judging pop star Lindsay Lohan. She is next on our Useless Celebrity Index. Look at how she stacks up next to Paris and Britney. Can you believe it? Even more useless than the two of them with that 114 score. Joe Piazza, how is Lindsay even more useless than Britney and Paris? And I think Lindsay's got talent.
Lindsay's status as another good girl gone bad mirrored Britney's to a degree. Both started out making kid-friendly content at a young age, Britney in the Mickey Mouse Club during the early 90s, and Lindsay in The Parent Trap along with other Walt Disney features, then matured to debut more provocative work just before being cast as tabloid train wrecks due to their own private struggles. Mid-2006, film producers' grievances with Lindsay's allegedly unprofessional behavior on the set of Georgia Rule were made public, as the CEO of Morgan Creek Productions chastised her for heavy partying in a letter leaked to the media. Rumors swirled about Lindsay's alleged drug use, which seemed to be confirmed in January of 2007 when she checked into rehab for the first, but definitely not the last, time. Together, Britney, Paris, and Lindsay created a sacred pantheon of party girl infamy, which in November of 2006, the New York Post deemed the three bimbos of the apocalypse. The paper's front page featured a now iconic photo of the three sitting in the front seats of Paris's car, emblazoned with the caption, Bimbo Summit. In February 2007, Newsweek made the Bimbos the subject of a cover story entitled The Girls Gone Wild Effect, the subheader reading, Out of control celebs and online sleaze fuel a new debate over kids and values. According to the article, 77% of adult Americans at the time believed Paris, Britney, and Lindsay had too much influence on young girls, while the article's author pondered if we could blame the three women for a cultural devaluation of sex, love, and lasting commitment. Days after that story was published, Britney committed her most infamous act of self-sabotage yet, when she walked into a Tarzana salon in full view of an estimated 70 photographers.
We will turn now to the story that is burning up the internet. Absolutely. It's burning up the water cooler talk. It's just burning this morning, yes. Britney Spears. She's bald. We've got this photo now from the X17online.com, and it appears to show the pop star shaving her own head.
At the beginning of 2008, Britney Spears was hospitalized twice via 5150, something that paparazzi more than captured during her ambulance ride to the UCLA Medical Center. And still, images of Britney strapped to a gurney aren't as popularly associated with her supposed breakdown as images and videos of her shaving her head are. Because to a lot of people, the most concerning thing Britney Spears ever did was remove one of the most obvious symbols of her femininity, when she wasn't a hot young blonde sex symbol anymore, but only because she chose not to be. A choice that the public and media were quick to label as crazy. Just 1 year prior to the head shave, Britney told People magazine that pop music had gotten boring to her, and that she was working on an album that could reinvigorate the entire pop scene. She was right. Her fifth studio album, Blackout, released in October of 2007, has become one of the most celebrated and influential pop albums of the 21st century, released during a time in which Britney Spears knew her public image was in the gutter. The album doesn't work in spite of Britney's tabloid trashed reputation, it works because of it. Because it couldn't have been made by anybody but Britney Spears at any time but 2007, when paparazzi culture was at its peak and Britney Spears was its unquestioned poster child, all at once victimized, vilified, and revered via the negative press of the 2000s. When tabloids labeled Britney and her partying cohorts as girls gone wild, it was supposed to be shameworthy. They were meant to represent everything that young women should try not to be. Sloppy, sexual, unapologetic, and uncompromisingly human. Against the instructions of her record label, Blackout became Britney's most personal album to date, chronicling the emotional turmoil of her divorce, her brand new identity as a mother of two, and her life as a media fixation point. Crucially, it's an album that invites all of its listeners to Bimbo Summit.
I'm very flattered. I'm actually on tour, so I couldn't be there. Everyone have a great night. Stop drinking. You know who you are. I'm speaking to you. Stop drinking. You're gonna get sloppy. OK is gonna say something bad about you. You guys have fun tonight.